interested, go to foxnation.com to sign up for our streaming service.
Yeah, I would not be interested in Fox Nation. A lot of stuff going on. It's the only time you can get an app. Just click on it. Just like that.
Foxnation.com.
Man, it's cold outside.
Morning, everybody. President Trump leaving this hour for a major international summit as the U.S. confronts big issues overseas and here at home, and there is a lot on the line. Good morning. I'm Bill Hemmer. It is Thursday inside of America's Newsroom. Big 3 hours. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. I'm Sandra Smith. The president packing in some high-level meetings with both China and Russia as the world awaits some big decisions from our commander-in-chief. Meanwhile, here at home, lawmakers facing an intensifying border wall funding battle and growing drama over the Mueller investigation.
So Griff Jenkins live back on the border with Mexico. Chris Starwalt has analysis on all of this. But first, White House correspondent Kevin Corke live in Argentina, where the president will arrive a bit later today. Kevin, let's start there with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Now, as you can imagine, there's a great deal of anticipation ahead of this important summit, but maybe not for all the reasons that you might otherwise expect. Now, it is clear there's a hope, certainly, and an expectation that this will prove to be a much more collaborative matter, especially when compared to both the G7 and the NATO summits. As you know, we saw certainly in both occasions the president proving both his political independence and his willingness to disrupt the status quo. Now, of note this particular time, whether or not the planned bilateral with Russian President Vladimir Putin will in fact take place, and whether or not it will produce anything of value. That meeting, as you know, takes on added significance, Bill, given the Kremlin's recent attack on a Ukrainian vessel. The Ukrainians, in fact, are now asking NATO warships to patrol that part of the globe. And there is, of course, the 800-pound elephant in the room. That, of course, being the ongoing trade battle between the world's two largest economies, the United States and China. What might the Trump-Xi Jinping bilateral produce? The hope is there will be progress. But frankly, Bill, there is pessimism here if you read the local papers, given the president's insistence that the playing field be level between the U.S. and Beijing. Let me take you to Twitter. The president actually weighing in on this topic. He said this: billions of dollars are pouring into the coffers of the USA because of the tariffs being charged to China. And there is a long way to go. Sort of tipping his hand there as you look at that tweet. He continues by saying this: if companies don't want to pay tariffs, build in the USA. Otherwise, let's just make our country richer than ever before. We have all that plus the ongoing question about the Brexit vote and its impact not only in the UK's economy, Bill, but also on the standing of British Prime Minister Theresa May. So much more to get to. Of course, we'll have you covered here with live coverage throughout. But for now, back to you.
Good deal. Thank you, Kevin. Nice to see you there in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Thank you, Kevin. Sam.
Meanwhile, a troubling situation unfolding on our southern border. At this hour, we're hearing now more than 2,200 migrants are being treated for health-related issues, as we learn that there are at least 600 known criminals traveling in that caravan. Griff Jenkins is live on the border in Tijuana, Mexico, with the latest.
Sandra, it is alarming news we're getting from Tijuana's health department yesterday. Before I give you those numbers, though, let me just show you for the 6,000 plus migrants that are in this cramped tent city, that tent, that little white tent attached to a small camper, is the extent of the health services available from Tijuana's municipal health department, and the numbers are alarming. Take a look at these. Of the 2,267 migrants that have been treated so far, we know that over 60% have respiratory infections. There are 3 confirmed cases of tuberculosis. There are 4 cases of HIV/AIDS, 101 cases of lice, and 4 cases of chicken pox. And hepatitis is a real concern here as well because of the overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. It's been raining all night, expected to rain all day. The migrants are cold, wet, and suffering from colds, and it is creating a situation of frustration, not only because of the fact that they're very sick right now, but also because they believe they were lied to by organizers who told them it was going to be much easier to get across to the U.S. Marco Munoz is one of those migrants from Honduras who told me that they're worried we may be headed towards a breaking point. Take a listen.
They lied to us from the beginning. So most of these people are disappointed, and getting frustrated at the time. So as you can see, every day that passes, it's more and more people that are coming. So there's going to be a point break where they're just going to say, let's rush in there,
And we're hearing that there may be we're hearing there may be an effort to move some of these folks to another location to create a spot with more space. We'll find out if that happens. We're also hearing of a potential march amongst the migrants here. Of course, the last time there was a march on Sunday, it turned violent and was a bad situation. We'll find out. The situation's fluid, but one thing's for sure, these migrants are not healthy. Sandra?
Griff Jenkins, thank you.
Oftentimes the situations grow dire before they get better. For more on all this, I want to bring in Chris Steyerwalt, Fox News digital policy editor. How you doing, buddy? Good morning to you. We can talk about immigration. I mean, you can throw a dart at the board today, but when you think about the president leaving this hour for Argentina, oftentimes these trips don't amount to much, Chris, but there are big targets here. China and Russia and Ukraine. So what's a good case scenario? What does the White House get from this trip?
So the G20 hasn't amounted to much over history. This was a response to the financial crisis. This is too big of a group to functionally do anything. When we think about groups that do stuff, it's usually 3 or 4 countries working together, maybe 7. What this offers for the president, what this offers for this administration, though, is what can he do piece by piece, leader by leader, as he goes through. How does he respond to Putin? Putin has been totally unchecked. He is doing whatever he pleases. He is acting, you would almost say rashly, or at least like a man who's afraid that he's not going to face any consequences for these bad acts. So you have that part. Remember, they were trying to interfere with our midterm elections. They are acting provocatively with Ukraine. They are doing all of those things. So he's got that piece. Then he's got the China piece. So far, China has walked slow. They have not overreacted or been intense in their response to Trump's tariffs, but it's hurting them, and pretty soon they're going to have to take some action.
Okay, here on the tariffs, here's the tweet, guys, from the president. Billions of dollars, he writes, are pouring into the coffers of the USA because of the tariffs being charged at China, and there's a long way to go. If companies don't want to pay tariffs, build in the USA. Otherwise, let's just make our country richer ever than before. There is a long way to go. That's the sentence that sticks out in my mind. I don't know in this meeting on Saturday night as to whether or not they come out with a joint statement that says they're working toward a resolution, or whether or not this could go on for months. And my guess right now, it's the latter, Chris.
The Chinese are patient players. We know that. They do not act rashly, and they probably have been waiting to see whether domestic pressure on the president or an economic turndown or what happens with the U.S. economy. The other thing I would say is, if all these billions of dollars are pouring into our coffers as a consequence of these tariffs, why are we still running trillion-dollar deficits? My goodness, the federal balance sheet is so far out of whack, it's ridiculous. Holy crocono.
There it is. Sometimes it is said that it's good to get outside the D.C. bubble. And oftentimes that's healthy for a president who gets himself locked into that environment there. But when he comes home, he's still going to have this Mueller matter, et cetera. And this was his latest message on that. Did you ever see an investigation more in search of a crime, he writes. At the same time, Mueller and the Democrats aren't even looking at the atrocious and perhaps subversive crimes that were committed by crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, a total disgrace. So he has that to come back to. Is it good to get out of the bubble, Chris, for a bit?
Well, yesterday on Twitter, he was saying he was going to lock up Mueller and they're going to imprison all these people for treason, including, for some reason, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't know what she did. But anyway, there's the Twitter Trump where he says this stuff for his base to make sure that he keeps them white-hot hatred for Mueller and the deep state and the conspiracy theories and this stuff. And then there's the stuff that he says when he does interviews with people like Chris Wallace. And he talks to the rest of the country, the 70% of the country, when he says, I'm not going to fire Mueller. Everything is going according to plan. This is all fine. So it's the two messages. It's the one for his devotees, and it's one for the rest of the country.
Okay. You sound like some crocono in your voice.
I've been hanging out with the caravan. I got it from Griff. I got you.
Senator Kennedy on immigration from Martha last night. Watch here. Roll it and listen.
The insider elites and the nature cure quacks up here in D.C. lecture the president every day about the rule of law. And yes, the rule of law is important. But how come it doesn't apply to those who are trying to break our immigration laws? I mean, you could drown in the hypocrisy.
Get a quick word on this as to whether or not you think there could be some sort of deal cut between the Senate and the House on that funding bill, Chris.
The obliviousness of Democrats on this subject, their inability to understand how this not only reinforces the president's point, but undercuts their own on immigration, means that they're not likely to come to the table because they don't understand how they're being disadvantaged. They don't know how this is hurting them, so I don't think they're able to really talk turkey yet.
Oh, thank you, sir. We'll talk to you real soon. Chris Starwell there. We got a lot coming up on all this coming up today. Our headliner, former Deputy National Security Advisor Michael Anton is here today. Looking forward to hearing from him again. Also from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, Pete Flores is live and next hour here in America's Newsroom. A lot on the table. Smitty, you think about the headlines from this weekend. I mean, they could be fast and furious with regard to Russia and Vladimir Putin, that meeting, the meeting with President Xi on Saturday night. So stand by.
All this as we await the departure of the president a short time from now, where he could weigh in on any of this if he takes questions from reporters, so we'll wait on that. Plus, there's this brand new reaction coming into our newsroom this morning from President Trump on those layoffs at General Motors, what he is now saying about the American car maker. Plus this.
We have no smoking gun that the Crown Prince was involved, not the intelligence community or anyone else. There is no smoking gun.
There was a big briefing yesterday. Some of these lawmakers not happy with what they heard. We'll find out in a moment from Senator John Barrasso about the closed-door hearing that has sparked a wave of bipartisan outrage. Senator Barrasso is coming up live in a moment.
And could stalled judicial nominees force Republican leaders to take up a vote on protecting the special counsel, Robert Mueller? We are going to hear from the lawmaker who stopped the bill dead in its tracks yesterday. Senator Mike Lee will join us. But first, here's Sarah Sanders.
The president has had Robert Mueller doing his job for the last 2 years, and he could have taken action at any point, and he hasn't. So we'll let that speak for itself. He has no intent to do anything.
Fox News alert: the Pentagon releasing the names of 3 U.S. service members killed in a roadside bombing in Afghanistan Tuesday. 29-year-old Army Captain Andrew Ross, 39-year-old Army Sergeant First Class Eric Emmond, and 25-year-old Air Force Staff Sergeant Dylan Elchin. The Taliban claiming responsibility. It was the deadliest attack on American troops in Afghanistan this year.
Debating a resolution on the Senate floor, which we think is just poorly timed. There is no direct reporting connecting the Crown Prince to the order to murder Jamal Khashoggi.
I changed my mind because I'm pissed. The way the administration's handled the Saudi Arabia event is just not acceptable. The briefing today did not help me at all. Institutionally, we have a right to be briefed by the CIA. How can I make an informed decision as a United States Senator about whether or not the Crown Prince is complicit in a murder if I don't have access to the intelligence that I read about in the paper?
Members of this body have a right to hear from Director Haspel, and her absence today speaks volumes about the White House's intention for congressional oversight and Saudi Arabia.
Some of the reaction we're getting from the Hill, high-stakes closed-door briefing on Saudi Arabia. It happened yesterday with James Mattis and Mike Pompeo. One of the senators in that meeting is with me now, Senator John Barrasso, the Republican from Wyoming. And, sir, welcome back here to America's Newsroom.
Thanks, Bill. Great to be with you.
Take us inside the room. What was the message?
Well, there was 100% agreement of 100 senators that the death and the murder of Jamal Khashoggi was brutal, was ruthless, and was against American values. We had the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense, but not the CIA director. Many people wanted the CIA director to be there so she could be questioned directly. But there was also 100 senators who believed, whether there was a smoking gun or not, that if a gun were to be found, it would be the fingerprints of the Crown Prince on that gun. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that he was involved, and the question then is, what do you do about it? And I think we have to absolutely condemn the behavior of Saudi Arabia in this case. This is against our values. We have to strongly explain our values to the world, but also we need to keep the agreement going, working with the Saudi Arabia. They are a source of stability in that part of the world. And some of the hypocrisy out there, Bill, are the Democrats that say, well, we should be doing more with diplomacy in that part of the world. But yet they have been holding up President Trump's nominee to be the Assistant Secretary of State, David Schenker, for that part of the world for 7 months now.
So the administration's position is that they're going to go forward with the relationship with Saudi Arabia. That's what I take away from this. And Gina Haspel was not there. I was just wondering if that would have swayed some of those in the room. Would that have been a better deal, do you think, for those? Because you had a vote after the 63-37, 2-1, to cut support to Saudi Arabia for that war in Yemen. You were one who voted against that resolution. How come?
Yes, I voted against it. I think we need to continue the relationship, continue what we're doing. I believe it's important to get our Assistant Secretary and Ambassador on the ground there. I think had the director of the CIA been there, I don't think it would have changed the outcome. So people that want to point to that as a reason, I don't think is a justifiable reason. Long term, we need relationship with Saudi Arabia as in terms of what Iran is doing. Iran continues to fund the Houthis in Yemen who are attacking Saudi Arabia. They're funding these folks with money that the United States gave Iran as part of this Iran nuclear deal. So I think there's bad actors all around. Our source of stability in the Middle East is Saudi Arabia.
You accept the argument Mike Pompeo makes that there is a lot of tough actors in that part of the world, and at some point you have to deal with them. Is this just, are you telling the American people that they just have to swallow hard on this aspect of the story with Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think we need to should have been much more forceful in condemning what has been done. You take a look and you say, is this 31-year-old the right person, the Crown Prince, to be leading that country? There are changes that may be made internally in Saudi Arabia to change leadership. All of those things I think are important. But I think that what we are doing now in our long-term relationship to Saudi Arabia is important. I also think what President Trump is doing with energy in America is important. So we're not dependent on anyone in that part of the world for energy, and we're more relying on American energy.
These waters run deep. And quickly, I just want to get to another big story, and that's this 2-hour meeting with Vladimir Putin that's scheduled for Saturday. James Mattis, you've got the whole conflict with Russia provoking Ukraine in the last week. Here's what James Mattis said about that yesterday.
It was obviously a flagrant violation of international law. It was, I think, a cavalier use of force when you think that there is a treaty between the two countries that proves exactly what happened. It just shows that Russia cannot be counted on right now to keep its word.
You can make the argument that Putin's trying to test this administration yet again. What comes of this meeting, Senator?
Well, I think much more important than the meeting is what we, the United States, actually do in the area. And I suggest that we actually send ships to the Black Sea to send a message to Ukraine that we are with them, and to send a message to Russia that international law must be followed. Look, Vladimir Putin is a show, not tell guy. You can tell him anything you want. He respects power and he respects geography. And what he's doing in the area of Ukraine is actually a fight for more geography. He takes it any time he tries to do it. He is testing the United States and the resolve of NATO.
Yeah, Senator, thank you for your time. We got some breaking news. Sorry to cut you off. Hope you come back.
Thanks for having me.
John Barrasso, thank you, the senator from Wyoming.
Meanwhile, this just coming in from the Associated Press, Michael Cohen, President Trump's ex-lawyer, is making a surprise court appearance this morning before a federal judge in New York. According to some of the latest reports on this right now, Bill, Michael Cohen made a surprise appearance in a Manhattan courtroom to plead guilty to a new criminal charge, which of course would be the latest turn in the special counsel's investigation of the president and his inner circle. So we're just starting to get reports on this now.
Just wonder how this case is changing if the surprise appearance is happening now, Sandra, because 2 weeks from now, Cohen, age 52, was scheduled to be in court to be sentenced for an earlier guilty plea. And that case included bank and tax crimes and was brought by federal prosecutors here in New York City. This is the district court here in New York City, where a lot of people, including Alan Dershowitz, think the real legal action is. So we'll see what happens here with Cohen showing up today.
We will likely have much more on this coming up for you in a few moments. Stay tuned. Keep it right here on America's Newsroom. We'll be right back.
Yeah, and I want to get back to this breaking news. We're getting word we got a producer inside the courtroom in Lower Manhattan where Michael Cohen has made a surprise appearance. According to the Associated Press, there's one line crossing right now, pleading guilty to lying to Congress, according to the AP, about a Trump real estate project in Russia. Now, remember, Cohen, the former lawyer for the president, pleaded guilty back in August to breaking some sort of campaign finance laws, made a surprise appearance earlier today. This about 2 weeks prior to a scheduled appearance. He was was expected in court on the 12th of December for a sentencing part of his case. So how that's impacted based on today's appearance, we do not know, but the case then involved bank and tax crimes brought by federal prosecutors here in New York City. This goes with all the news that's surrounding Paul Manafort. When the Mueller team came out, according to reports, and accused Manafort of lying. At the same time, there was an accusation that Manafort had met with Julian Assange in London, and Manafort's team came out and blasted that, said it was not true at all. So this is going back and forth at a time when Rudy Giuliani confirmed with John Roberts and others that apparently at the White House that the lawyer for Paul Manafort has been communicating with Rudy Giuliani, and some legal experts suggest that's not unusual, but to get an idea as to where Bob Mueller is going in his investigation. That'd be very valuable legal information for the president's team.
And remember, Michael Cohen's promised to put family and country first by cooperating with prosecutors. So a lot we don't know at this point. What we do know is that he is currently in that courtroom. We've got a producer there sending reporters down to the courthouse as well. That Michael Cohen is expected to plead guilty to a charge in the Mueller investigation. And as you noted, Bill, the latest crossing the AP is expected to plead guilty to lying to Congress about a Trump real estate project in Russia. And this would, of course, mark the first time that the Office of the Special Counsel has charged Cohen in exchange for pleading guilty and continuing to cooperate with Mueller. He may be obviously hoping to receive a lighter sentence than he otherwise would have.
It'd be a good day to get people like Alan Dershowitz on the air. We'll reach out to him and see what he thinks about this right now as we try and piece together the legal case right now and where this could be headed by the end of the day today, Sandra.
All right. And by the way, we are expecting the president to be departing en route to the G20 summit at the top of the next hour. We were anticipating that he could stop and talk to reporters, answer questions, as he sometimes and often does. This makes 10 o'clock even more important because he may stop and respond to all of this. So we await the president's departure at the top of the hour as well.
Also, we're getting this reaction, too, from the president. We read this tweet about 30 minutes ago. Did you ever see an investigation more in search of a crime, he wrote earlier today? At the same time, Mueller and the angry Democrats are not even looking at the atrocious and perhaps subversive crimes that were committed by crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. A total disgrace. That from earlier.
He also tweeted, when will this illegal Joseph McCarthy-style witch hunt, one that's shattered so many innocent lives, ever end, or will it just go on forever after wasting more than $40 million? Is that possible? Has proven only one thing: there was no collusion with Russia. So ridiculous. Those tweets came out before we learned of this surprise Michael Cohen appearance at a courthouse in Manhattan.
Michael Cohen, age 52. We'll see what comes of that right now inside before that judge, Sandra.
All right. In the meantime, we move on to this, and we'll have a lot more coming up, by the way, in just a few moments on that. To another.
Well, we're bringing this case so that we don't have to go to jail, because we believe that artists should be free to create without threat of punishment by the government. So we do not want that to happen. That's why we're here.
What if you lose and someone asks you, or you're thrown in jail?
We'll have to discuss that with our attorneys at that time.
But they won't violate their conscience, so they have to shutter their doors, and artists shouldn't have to give up their constitutional rights to make a living.
Many Christians think what you're doing is admirable. I know, or many people of faith would think that. Many people maybe not of faith would. But the other side, you might have some in the faith community that would challenge this and say, Jesus loved everybody, God loved everybody. What's your response to that, to those critics?
We love everyone, and we serve everyone. And we are here just believing strongly and standing up for the rights of artists to be free to create. And we want that for all artists and all people, no matter what they believe, what they think, who they are.
And the point of the case is to let everybody make the decision of what would Jesus do. That's the point of this case. The Constitution gives us that right.
Okay, ladies, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. God bless you all. Thank you. Nancy Pelosi might have won the Democrats' nomination for House Speaker, but the power battle is far from over. Dana Lash is here to react live, coming up next. And one high school football player picks up a huge win before the game even starts. The surprise he never saw coming.
Love to have you in the audience there at the Steakhouse. So show up between 5 a.m. Central Time and 8 o'clock Central Time. You might be on television, and you know who's going to be there? Kid Rock's going to be there.
Nice. You're going to be talking to the people, serving steak and eggs early in the morning.
Absolutely. My sense, no sleeves on Kid Rock. That's what I sense.
Long hair.
No sleeves, long hair.
So far, so good.
I think
that's right.
And I bet you he makes something that's in your book. He's in your book, right?
His mother made a recipe, a chicken pot pie.
Right.
And I
Mrs.
think,
Kid Rock.
I think the family will be there as well.
Well,
So
Nashville's
we'd
fun.
love
You're
to see
gonna
you
love
tomorrow.
the music.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Steakhouse tomorrow morning, live from Fox and Friends.
Okay, let's bring in Dana Lash, syndicated radio talk show host and of the Dana Show. Dana, good morning to you.
Good morning to you all. That sounds like a really fun thing tomorrow morning.
I know, right?
Come on
We need to
over.
go
I think you got to
with
go to Nashville.
us. We need to take the show on the road.
It's not too far.
All right, let's talk about what's happening
Exactly.
down on the border. We've been talking about these caravans. You have thousands of people that are camped out there trying to get into the United States. And on Saturday night, there was an MS-13 gang member that was arrested. They interviewed him. He was a Honduran citizen. He admitted to being a member of MS-13. There's his picture. And he intended on filing for asylum in the United States. And it turns out he'd already been deported once. What's your reaction to this?
I'm not actually shocked to hear. This is something that DHS warned us about. Secretary Nielsen warned us. They put out a report saying, look, there are about 600 known criminals and gang members that are traveling under the cover of this caravan, and they're exploiting the numbers to use this as a way to gain entry to the United States. And this really underscores the importance of how this has to be a careful process. You can't just let every single person in. You have to be able to vet everyone to make sure that the individuals are who they claim that they are. There have been a number of reports that have been put out by Border Patrol, even just getting into how the family units that previously identified themselves as family units to Border Patrol actually weren't family units, and they were traveling with children that weren't even theirs. And that's very concerning for those who claim that they care about these individuals, and particularly the children that are traveling with this caravan, although there have been others that have reported that it's predominantly men of a certain age demographic. The good thing to do is to wait and make sure that people are who they say they are, and that criminals aren't exploiting this as a way to get inside the United States. That's common sense, and I really wish that we could hear from Democrat leadership what their solution is to this problem, how they would handle it. The only thing that I've heard, Brian, so far is Elijah Cummings saying, well, I guess we should just let everybody in. I mean, it seems that he was making the argument to not vet anyone.
It's unbelievable. Ben Cardin says the system was working fine until Donald Trump took office. What planet is that guy on? Are you kidding? Everybody agreed that it needed to be fixed, updated. How to do it was the debate. Now it's Donald Trump's fault there's turbulence at the border. Unbelievable. I want to bring you over to talk about turbulence. Nancy Pelosi got over 200 votes yesterday in that top secret ballot, 203 to 32. But she does not right now have enough votes to become speaker again. Why?
I think because people are trying to uphold promises that they made to their voters. You have this battle going on in the Democrat right now, and it's not like, and I can't stand it when I see people compare it to the Tea Party, because the Tea Party was actually protesting against more government. People like Nancy Pelosi are promising more government, and interestingly enough, so are the quote-unquote grassroots resistance members within the Democrat Party. It's just by how much they want to have government. But what's interesting is that these individuals who rode this wave of resistance and anguish and angst, they're trying to take a stand against Nancy Pelosi, but when push comes to shove on the floor, I think she's going to have the votes. I think that the resistance stops at the door of the chamber. I don't think that it goes beyond that. She's going to assume the gavel.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. But what about when she is speaker? What about the 32 Democrats who voted against her yesterday? We've had guests on who said they're going to get punished. They're going to wind up with bad assignments and stuff like that, and shunned by Democratic leadership.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why there have been a lot of those Democrats that ended up in this 11th hour coming around to Nancy Pelosi because they realize it's better to be on her good side than not. For as much as I dislike her politics, she is incredibly savvy, although I wish she was savvy in terms of promoting limited government and an agenda of freedom. But that being said, she's very savvy with manipulating members of her own party, and she is known to put people in their place by giving them very bad assignments, if any at all. So we're going to see how that works out. But I think a lot more people are going to come to her side at the end of the day.
Well, she's a prolific fundraiser, and D.C. runs on money. Dana, thank you very much.
Can't argue with money.
And you cannot indeed. All right, thank you very much for joining us live today from Dallas.
Jillian Milley's also pro-money.
Yeah, isn't everybody though? And you can't argue with it
way.
because it doesn't talk back. So you're never going to win that battle. All right, let's get caught up in your headlines right now, starting with this. And Stormy Daniels calling out her attorney, Michael Avenatti. She claims he filed a defamation lawsuit against President Trump without her permission. Daniels also telling the Daily Beast he started a second crowdfunding site for her legal expenses without telling her. Avenatti says he started the new campaign to cover legal fees because most of the money so far has gone to her security. And how about this story? A couple is suing Sandals Resorts for $30 million after they say the private butler assaulted the bride. Ashley Reed telling the New York Post she woke up to the butler touching her inappropriately on the eve of her wedding. The New Jersey couple says Sandals offered to refund them $15,000. They say that's not enough to cover the suffering Reed has endured. A suspect steals a truck with a toddler in the back seat and then abandons it. This is surveillance video showing the suspect ditch the vehicle in a Florida neighborhood. The thief stole the truck while the baby's family was unloading groceries. The toddler's dad chased the vehicle down. The baby was not hurt. And grab the tissues. A deployed soldier surprises his brother as the two are reunited for the first time in years.
Staff Sergeant Robert Vino, older brother of MHS freshman football player Braden Vino.
Oh, the joyful family reunion happening ahead of the younger brother's game in Massachusetts. The soldier spent the last 2 years at Fort Hood in Texas. He stopped home before deploying to Japan. Ah, it's great. Those are sweet.
That just gets you.
I know.
Every time.
I wonder how he focused on the game then after that.
No kidding. He was happy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, it's 40 minutes after the top of the hour, and Janice has a weather report for us. She's outside.
Oh my gosh, look at this amazing crowd. Are you guys excited to be here? Who's from the South? Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And who has birthdays this week? Birthdays. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Who has birthdays all the time? Okay, that's good. Right over here, too. These are my friends from Milan, Italy, and it's your birthday, sir. How do you say happy birthday?
Compleanno. Buon compleanno.
How do you say it's cold?
In Italia, buon compleanno.
Fa freddo, è cold.
Fa freddo. Very cold.
I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds fantastic. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. It is cold here in New York City, but you know what? The sun is coming out, so it's not too bad. We do have a storm system that's going to visit us this weekend here in New York, so just keep that in mind. We have a storm system moving into the west. For some reason, my maps are not working, but that's okay, because look at the crowd we have here today. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. Did anyone say, oh, look at this. This is Ainsley. When was this? Was this a book signing?
Yes, it was in Nashville 2 years ago.
Oh, very nice. Okay, everybody want to wave to everybody at home and to Steve Ainsley and Brian. You know what? This is my favorite part of the day when I get to see all of you.
Aw. Tell them we're coming out. We can't wait to see them.
Everybody's bundled up.
I know, it's
I used
cold
to
out
think Janice liked when she saw us in the morning, but it's not. It turns out we're a distant second.
She
So all those other people.
She likes the folks.
She's a woman of the people.
You're right. All right, I am not a woman of people. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. No, 18. Google under fire yet again.
Petition either.
The search giant accused of illegally tracking millions of people worldwide. Why, our next guest says Congress needs to act now to protect our privacy. They're coming to Capitol Hill, by the way.
Plus, we said we're coming outside. We're revving things up outside some of the hottest motorcycles of the year on Fox Square.
Where's your helmet?
A sneak peek coming up.
Good morning to you. Some quick headlines. Dick's Sporting Goods could remove hunting gear from all of its stores. The chain has taken a hit in recent months following tighter gun sale restrictions. Revenues have dropped 4.5% in the past 3 months. Dick's raised the minimum age to buy a gun to 21 following the Parkland school shooting. And the Trump administration set to officially ban bump stocks on guns. Reports show the administration will require anyone who owns a bump stock to turn it into authorities within 90 days. A formal announcement is expected in the coming days. Brian?
A response to Las Vegas. Google's privacy practices once again under fire. The tech giant now facing worldwide scrutiny over the way it tracks users, sometimes without telling you, after 7 European watchdog agencies filed complaints accusing Google of using deceptive and manipulative techniques against its millions of users. So what does this mean for your privacy? Joining us right now with insight, senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government and a cybersecurity contributor for Hill.com, Morgan Wright. Morgan, this is pretty significant, correct?
Yes.
Why?
It's a $4.4 billion problem for Google because under the new EU regulations called the General Data Protection Regulations, you can be fined up to 4% of your global revenue if you violate the rules of the EU GDPR. And last year, 2017, Google made $110 billion. So this is significant. The other thing, too, Brian, is that at what point does no mean no? At what point, when you turn off tracking and you believe you're not being tracked, do you have an assurance you're not being tracked? Google is also accused of using a lot of deception and manipulation to get people to turn on other things that captures that tracking information. So between the U.S., the U.K., and the EU, there's a lot of legal activity going on that's affecting Google right now.
And keep in mind, I think 9 nations called out Facebook for what they were doing and not doing. So there's a big pushback globally, not just here. By the way, you bring up a point that when you hit pause, you're not supposed to be tracked. They still track you.
Yes.
And Google has a statement in response to that. They say location history is turned off by default, and you can edit, delete, or pause at any time. If you pause it, we may clear that depending on your individual phone and app settings. We might still collect and use location data to improve your Google experience. They're improving for us.
Look, you have to be a computer scientist and a legal scholar to understand everything that goes into operating something as simple as just your phone right here. So we've got to make it simple for people. Look, when you flip the light switch off and the lights go off, the lights are off. It's pretty clear. When you flip it on, it's on. It's got to be that way with your privacy, with your security. And what's happening is this drives revenue, Brian. This is all about Google making money off of targeting you, understanding where you're at, so they can deliver more and more targeted ads. And because you think you're not being tracked, you really are. How many times have people searched for something or been at a restaurant? You go on Facebook and all of a sudden it's like, or Google says, hey, what did you think of this restaurant? You go, I turned off my tracking. How do you know? This just happened yesterday. So I think, what's going to happen is you start off with litigation, with what's going on. Then there's going to be regulation. So you'll see FTC, FCC maybe get involved. But pretty soon I think what you're going to see is Congress, I think, has had enough of this. They're going to finally take action between Facebook, Twitter, Google, and everything going on. I think you'll see some legislation come up this next year, especially in a Democratic Congress.
Well, famously, the CEO of Google says, yeah, I know you invited me, Congress. I don't think I want to come. Now the CEO will be coming to testify on Capitol Hill. That'll be December 5th, his first public appearance ever before Congress. What question would you have?
I'd want to drill down and I say, okay, I don't think there's one question I could ask. I think there's probably 1,000, but really it's get down to when do we know that we're not being tracked? What do I have to do as a consumer to ensure that you can't track me? And when does no mean no on security and privacy? So I think you got to drill down on that. But as we found out, answers mean, words mean things. Well, it depends. It depends on what the definition of is. I don't want to go through that again. I want clear language from these social media providers, these technology companies, that I absolutely know when I'm being tracked and when I'm not, and I should be able to make a conscious choice. And Google is not giving us that conscious choice. So I'd look at manipulation, deceit, and see what else they're up to.
These companies like Amazon, Google, and Facebook are getting so big, almost bigger than our country. So let's see how they respond, see if there's any humility when they come before Congress. Morgan Wright, thanks so much.
You bet, Brian.
Hey, guess what's coming straight ahead? It's time to get your motor running, so to speak. Some of the hottest motorcycles of the year are on Fox Square. We're revving things up. But first, it is my privilege to ask Sandra Smith what's on her show.
Brian Kilmeade, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone out there. We are awaiting the president. He is set to take off for the G20 summit just a short time from now. We'll see if he stops and talks to reporters, answers any questions on his way out. Obviously, border funding battle, Saudi Arabia, possible meeting with Vladimir Putin. All of those are big issues that could come up. Meanwhile, we'll have live reports from the White House and the border coming up. Senators Barrasso and Thune, Congressman Mike Lee and Anthony Brown, and the stock market on track for its best week since Election Day week 2016. Reagan's former economic advisor, Art Laffer, is here. Join us live in America's Newsroom in about 10 minutes.
All right, get your motor running. The New York International Motorcycle Show kicks off tomorrow. But first, a pit stop here on Fox Square for a sneak peek of bikes. The CEO of Ducati North America, Jason Chinook, is here with the top 2019 models. Good morning to you.
Congratulations.
Good morning.
That's a big position.
It is a big.
Yes, that it is.
And you know what? Back in the day, this guy was a tank pilot, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I actually served in Desert Storm about 20 years ago. So
very good.
God bless you. We love you. What I love about this one, it's the most affordable out of all the four that you brought today. Tell us about it.
Actually, this is the Scrambler Cafe Racer, and the Scrambler line is something that's not only affordable but accessible for people wanting to learn how to ride a motorcycle as well. And actually, you can get into this bike for under $99 a month. and it has like a little bit of a cafe style or a classic style, but it has all the performance and technology you would expect
What do
in a
most
modern
people say
motorcycle.
they love about this one?
It's just the fact that it's got this historic spirit of it.
Okay, and so that's $99 a month. How much is Brian going to have to pay?
I mean, come on, get over here.
Okay,
How much is this going to cost us?
This is the Hyper Motard 950 SP, and this is a bike that actually kind of brings out that inner hooligan of you as a motorcycle that a lot of people have buried in deep. Exactly, and this is the one that you get out there, your elbows come out, and you grit your teeth, and you have a lot of fun and blast up the canyons if you need to as well. Very fast.
All right, Jason, what is Jillian on?
Hot. The matte black with the red.
Yeah, this is the new Diavel 1260, and this thing is a muscle motorcycle. I mean, this is kind of like the Dodge Charger, if you will, of motorcycles. Yeah, big giant air intakes. It helps bring a lot of the air in. It has an incredible sound, and the handling is what you would expect out of a Ducati as well.
All right.
Oh, this is $19,995.
All right.
So just under 20.
Jason, the final one with Janice Steen, the motorcycle machine.
Now, this is the most powerful production motorcycle ever. And this
Really?
is, yes, ever. This is the Panigale V4R. This thing with the race exhaust system delivers 234 horsepower at 369 pounds. And it's basically a bike that's been designed for the track that you can actually ride on the street if you want.
All right. Well, thank you. Janice, just make out a check. It's $40,000. All right. There you go. Jason, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Round of applause for the guys from Ducati. We'll be right back.